I'm Diane Owens, and I'm the president of the American Association of University Women, Lompoc branch. And it's my pleasure to welcome you all tonight to a very special event. We're so glad it worked out that we could have both candidates with us tonight. So just a few housekeeping things. We found out when we got here we only have one microphone, so we'll be going back and forth a little bit. But that kind of makes it fun, right? And the restrooms are right outside, and I'll tell you what the format is in just a minute, how we're going to run this. But first I wanted to tell you a little bit about AUW, because I'm finding out that a lot of people don't know about the American Association of University Women. And it's not that we haven't been around. We've been around since 1881, actually. And a group of women, college-educated women, decided to form a group, and they called themselves the American Association of University Women. And in 1881, it was widely believed that women shouldn't go to college, that they shouldn't go to the university because they were too fragile, and it would hurt, it wouldn't do, and their health would just be impaired if they went to school. So these women decided to change that a little bit, and then they got involved with getting women to vote. So the American Association of University Women helped with that too. So over the years, we're a nonpartisan organization. We don't support candidates, but we do support issues, policy issues that affect women, children, and families. And just about every policy issue affects women, children, and families. So we do get involved with supporting legislation, policies that are important to us. Since in 1964, the Lompoc branch began, and for about 30 years now, we've been doing forums like this for candidates. Because we don't have a League of Women Voters in Lompoc, and usually they're the group that does these kinds of things. So we've taken that role over, and so for 3 decades we've been doing forums. And the one thing that's impressed me the most about the forums in Lompoc, and I haven't been involved with all of them for all 30 years, but what's impressed me the most is what great audiences we always have. We always have very respectful audiences, even though you might not agree with what a speaker says. Everyone is very respectful and very polite, and I've always appreciated that about Lompoc. That's really a nice quality, I think, for our city. So tonight we also are doing voter registration. So if you have moved or changed your name or whatever, and need to re-register, we have paper information back here to do that. And you also know that you can register online, and that's very easy to do also. And the last day to register is October 22nd. So it's important to register to vote. We also have our membership chair, Barbara Bolton, here. So if you have any questions about AUW, she can answer everything. So I'm pretty sure she can, right? So, okay. So membership and voter registration, and then we'll get started. Before we get started, I want to thank these candidates, not only for coming tonight, but for putting themselves out there to run for office. I don't think it's an easy thing to do anymore. It's things are pretty partisan, and things get a little ugly sometimes. So I think we should give them a round of applause for being Okay, so let me tell you how this is going to work. They're going to each do a welcome, or they're going to do an introduction, 2-minute introduction speech. And then I'm going to ask questions, alternating between them, and that'll probably take us about 35-40 minutes. And then we're going to have a break. And what you'll be doing during the break is writing your questions for afterwards, because all the questions from the audience will be written on 3x5 cards, and they'll be handed to the screening committee. And we just go through them to be sure we don't have duplicates and things like that. And it goes much faster if you write them out. So we have pencils, we have cards, and so we'll be sure that you get those. And then we'll have closing statements, and then we'll adjourn. So pretty simple, huh? So I would like to introduce Abel Maldonado and Lois. So we're going to pass the microphone, and Abel is going to give his introductory statement first.
Maybe we could shut this up a little bit.
Come over here.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity. Diane, thank you for doing this. This is great. Anytime there's an election, especially for Congress here on the Central Coast, it's one that's very, very important to all of us. For me, this is a job interview. I'm running for Congress, and you have the right to come here and ask me any question that you have because I'm running for Congress. And for my opponent, this is a job evaluation. You evaluated what's gone on over the last 14 years in Washington. So let me just be very, very brief because I only have 2 minutes. I'm the son of immigrant field workers. My father came to Santa Maria in the early 60s looking for a better life. He met my mother in Pismo Beach at a dance, believe it or not. And it was the beginning of our family farm. My father came here looking for an opportunity to work hard. He came to this great country of opportunity. My mother was born in Arizona. Obviously, she's the daughter of immigrants also. And this country's been so good to all of us, to my family, and obviously to our country, to be very honest with you. Our country's been great. I want to share this with you. I'm running for Congress because Washington's broken. It really is. Diane, when she introduced us, she said there's a lot of fighting and a lot of attacking going on. That's what goes on in Washington all the time. They just fight at each other. Republicans fight Democrats, and Democrats fight Republicans. And you, me, us, we get to foot the bills. And that's why I'm running for Congress. Because I've demonstrated that I can get the job done and not worry about who gets the credit. Just move our great state forward and our great country forward. I'm asking for your help. I think Washington needs new thinking. Washington needs new leadership. Washington needs some new ideas. Because the ideas coming out of Washington are bad ideas. Bank bailing out the banks, bailing out the big banks, and we don't get loans for foreclosures. That's what's happening in Washington today. We need to level the playing field with China. Let's think about it. All our jobs are going abroad. And by golly, we need some good tax credits to keep clean jobs here on the Central Coast. This is the place where I was born. I was born in this district. I love this district. I hope you give me an opportunity to represent you. I won't let you down.
And Lois, you want to come up here? Stand. I'll stand right here. Okay.
Well, I want to thank the Lompoc AAUW for organizing this event and for all of you for coming. Some of you know I raised my family right here on the Central Coast. I worked as a nurse in our public schools. I taught at Santa Barbara City College. And now in Congress, I have a strong record on behalf of our local communities. From voting against privatizing Medicare and Social Security, to finding federal funds for the Child Development Center out at Vandenberg Air Force Base, to working closely with our cut flower industry. Putting the needs of my constituents first means that I work with Democrats and Republicans alike. I teamed up with my colleague Elton Gallagher to make sure we have an air tanker now housed at Santa Maria Airport in the event of a forest fire. I took the ideas that Supervisor Gray had to include in a federal transportation that safe and new evacuation routes. And that idea is now written into law. And I've worked with the city of Lompoc to find additional electricity sources that are cheaper and cleaner from wind and hydropower. But we have a long way to go to get our economy back on track. And that's why I continue to support targeted investments in infrastructure, in clean energy, in high-tech research and development. It's why we'll continue to support increased student aid to make colleges more affordable for our families. And it's why when our tax cuts are due to expire at the end of this year, I've already voted to extend them for middle-class families because ordinary Americans and business need certainty in this global economy. And now, as we face together, I believe we can get our economy back to full steam by working with our businesses, community by community, and organizations like this one. I'm glad I am a member of the AAUW. I appreciate your advocacy on behalf of women's issues, and I look forward to our conversation this evening. Thank you all again for coming. I hope I'm going to earn your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Capps. Okay, our first question. What we did, we decided that one or two of our members read both of the party platforms. Have a lot of you read them word for word, right? Okay, so we read the party platforms to see if we could find positions on the issues that were different. And so what I'm going to do first is show you the platform, and then we will follow that with a question. So there's a couple of them. This one, there is not a comparable platform in the Republican platform for this first question, and the second question will be the opposite. There won't be one for the Democrats. Then after that, the questions, we have both. So the Democratic Party is committed to ensuring full equality for women, including the Paycheck Fairness Act, help stop gender discrimination in pay before it starts. The U.S. Census Bureau recently released new data on the gender wage gap, and it's not pretty. Women still earn just 77 cents on average for every dollar earned by their male counterparts. That number hasn't budged in the last decade, and the numbers are worse for Black and Hispanic women. Congress adjourned last Friday without passing the Paycheck Fairness Act. And this first question, because she went second, will be for Ms. Capps. What is your position on the Paycheck Fairness Act and why? How will you vote when this comes back to the floor of the House if you are elected?
Thank you very much. And I think my record shows already that I'm in favor of the Paycheck Fairness Act and will vote for it. I'm a co-sponsor of the legislative act to it. And this fact that we adjourned last Friday without passing the Paycheck Protection Act makes me think of us all standing, as we Democrats did, as the House was getting ready to adjourn, having been in session under Republican leadership only 7 days since the beginning of August, with so much left undone. And one of the undone pieces is this Paycheck Protection Act. I'm really proud of the fact that President Obama, the first bill he signed into law, was a Lilly Ledbetter Fairness Act. And it is something that this is really discrimination against women that is occurring amongst most Americans, because it's in the interest of men to have this enacted as well. And it certainly is in the interest of the future, because many women are the sole breadwinners of their family, and it's their children who depend on their paycheck. And the fact that Lilly Ledbetter worked all those years for Goodyear Tire, and it wasn't until she retired that she realized that she had made all those years as an administrative secretary that much less than her counterpart who was doing the exact same job. That she took that case all the way to the Supreme Court, and they ruled not in her favor. So we changed it in the Congress. It's one of the times we were able to overturn a ruling of the Supreme Court, and that was the legislation that the president signed into law. We have a long way to go, since we're still 77 cents on the dollar. We're a little tiny bit higher here in this part of California, but we still have a long way to go. And I'm so glad that this was a question that I could address. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Maldonado?
Well, first of all, I would immediately vote for the Lilly Ledbetter Act that President Obama signed into law. I have no problem with that. I think it's shameful that it hasn't been passed before. And when it comes to the Paycheck Fairness Act, well, I have a daughter who just graduated from Cal Poly San Luis as an ag business major, and there's no reason why she should make less than a man. So when I get to Washington, we're going to work very, very closely together, Republicans and Democrats, to make sure we get a Paycheck Fairness Act that moves forward. I've done it before. I voted for it before. But let me tell you what the reason they haven't passed it. Because I think this is important. This is why I'm running for Congress. They can't come together on anything. They really can't. Because they get on the podium in the House of Representatives, and the Democrats get up there and they beat up on the Democrats, and they attack the Republicans. And you know what the Republicans do? They go to the podium and they attack the Democrats, and we lose. I'm running to Congress for America, for the 24th Congressional District. I'm not running for Congress for the Republican Party. And I'm not running for the Democrat Party. I'm not running for the Green Party. I'm running for the 24th Congressional District. And when I get over there, I think my votes will speak loud and clear.
Thank you. Okay, thank you both very much. Next question, and this is one where it's just the Republicans that had something in their platform about the Affordable Care Act. Republican victories in the November elections will guarantee that Obamacare is never implemented. Congressional Republicans are committed to its repeal. Then the American people, through the free market, can advance affordable and responsible health care reform that meets the needs and concerns of patients and providers. Through Obamacare, the current administration has promoted the notion of abortion as health care. We, however, affirm the dignity of women by protecting the sanctity of human life. AUW's position on this particular issue is that everyone is entitled to health care that is high quality, affordable, and easily accessible. So the question, what is your position on the Affordable Care Act and why? Are there provisions in the act that you think should be amended or modified, and in what way? And this is first.
Well, first of all, I'm not running for the Republican Party chairman of the United States of America. So I don't care what the Republican platform says, because I'm going to represent you. And I mean that with all my heart. And I mean that with all my heart. Now the question is on the Affordable Care Act, the Washington Health Care Act. They passed it. It was 2,700 pages long. Very few people read it. People called it a gamble. And there was a lot of things in there that I think we need to look at. I mean, why should you pay taxes when you sell your house? Why should you pay taxes on medical devices? And why should you have 15 people who are unelected, unaccountable to anyone tell you if you can get medical care? Or tell a doctor if he or she can perform a service? That's what they did in Washington. Now there's a couple of things in there that I actually can live with. And I think that we ought to do it. And you know what? We ought to do it in a piece of legislation. In fact of the matter, if I become a congressman, if you allow me to be a congressman, I wouldn't mind having a piece of legislation that covers the donut hole immediately, because that must be covered. I think pre-existing conditions, we need to find a way as Americans to find a way to cover pre-existing conditions. And of course, allowing young individuals to stay on health care. I think that's important. And bottom line, we have health care for everybody today. It's just too expensive. It's called the emergency room.
Yeah, that's right.
So we need to find a way that is accessible, that is affordable, that allows people to get health care. And the question is, how do you do that? And we can do it in a bipartisan way. But to pass a bill without letting anybody else get involved in the process, just ram it through and say, you know what? Let's just pass it and we'll find out what's in it later. And you know what? Let's just call it a gamble. I'm not going to gamble on your health care. I promise you that. And I'm not going to gamble on your Medicare. Because there's only 2 people up here running for office and only one has cut $700 billion for Medicare, and I am not going to cut Medicare from you. I can guarantee you that.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, it looks like I'm going to have to address the Medicare. I might as well do it now. That's a falsehood. There isn't 1 penny in the savings to Medicare that have been enacted through the Affordable Care Act. Not 1 penny of benefits has been decreased from the actual person receiving Medicare. It's all been in the area of waste, fraud, and abuse, which I think the public wanted us to do. So let me get that is a total falsehood in the sense that benefits from beneficiaries are cut. But I do agree with the principle that AAUW shares, that I share with AAUW, that everyone is entitled to health care that is high quality, affordable, and easily accessible. And I know from my years as being a school nurse that that was not the case. And now we have taken steps in that direction. Not a perfect law by any means, and we can fix it, we can make it better. But already in this district, 60,000 seniors are finding their health care prescription costs benefited, and they've been reduced, and eventually that donut hole will be fixed through this law. And already in this district, over 10,000 young people are able to stay on their parents' plan, a similar kind of plan that the state put out, which my opponent didn't support when he was in the state legislature, to allow young people to stay on their parents' plan until they're 26. And there are many small businesses now that can afford to have insurance for their employees because they get a tax break when they do this. So there are things that are good in the healthcare law. And as we find out the parts, and yes, I have read it, and yes, we did work on it for over a year in the Congress, and there were many ideas like the requirement, the mandate, that came straight from President Nixon. It's a very bipartisan piece of legislation, and it's like the American way. When we start something, we can make it better as we go along, just as Medicare and Social Security were controversial when they were first passed into law as well. Thank you.
Thank you. This is interesting having to pass the mic, isn't it? Okay, so next question is on immigration. And the Republican Party platform says about immigration, in light of both current needs and historic practice, the utility of a legal and reliable source of foreign labor where needed, a Republican administration will consider a new guest worker program. We will create humane procedures to encourage illegal aliens to return home voluntarily while enforcing the law against those who overstay their visas. And the Democratic Party platform on immigration says, the country needs comprehensive immigration reform that brings undocumented immigrants out of the shadows and requires them to get right with the law, learn English, and pay taxes in order to get on a path to earn citizenship. The Democratic Party supports a system for allocating visas that meets our economic needs, keeps families together, and enforces the law. The Democratic Party supports the DREAM Act, ensuring that young people are able to become legal residents and ultimately citizens. So Ms. Capps will answer this question first, and the question is, what is your position on your party's platform on immigration and why? What steps would you take to improve our immigration policies? Please explain.
Thank you. I support the Democratic Party platform. I have as long as I've been in Congress. I didn't realize that the Republican platform actually promotes the guest worker program. And I certainly hope that piece of the platform isn't enacted ever into law, because we saw what happened in California when we had such a program. We have a broken immigration system, and I know that at my office as a member of Congress, with the casework that we do with many people, we know very well how broken our immigration system is. We saw clearly the hunger for people who've been educated in this country to find their place when we had a workshop at Allen Hancock College when the president did the Deferred Dream Act, because Congress wouldn't act in this administration of Congress and this leadership to pass the Dream Act, that he made this chance for young people to experience either joining the military or continuing in college after they had finished their high school. And it was so packed we didn't have room for people to come in that evening. We have a broken system and we need to fix it. We need to make sure that our borders are secure, which is clearly something that the Border Patrol has been doing and can do even better. But we need to bring people out of the shadows and give them an opportunity to have a legal status in this country for their own protection and also for ours. And the DREAM Act is something I've long supported, because it is an opportunity to get our job market back in shape again, with people well educated, ready to do the work of this country. And clearly we know here in this agriculture part of our country in California that we need to have the Ag Jobs Bill passed. Those are a part of comprehensive immigration reform, and that is something that I clearly support. So I'm in line with my party's platform on immigration, and I'm glad that we had a chance to compare the two. Thank you very much. I'll just pass it to you.
question?
Same question.
Well, I haven't read the Republican Party's platform. So just let me tell you how I feel about immigration. The temporary worker program that we had in America before worked. There was a guy who was 16 years old, who turned 17 years old, who crossed the border in 1963 looking for a better life in this great country, and his son became the 47th Lieutenant Governor of California. So this notion that the immigration system's broken, well then let's fix it. Let's just get down to it and let's fix it. And let's get back to the basics of giving somebody a temporary worker permit to allow them to work on a temporary basis. Because if it worked for my father, it'll work for a lot of people. So this notion that the Republican platform says this or says that, at the end of the day, we need a temporary worker permit that allows people to come here in a safe and humane way to do jobs in this country. And if the job isn't there, then they go back to the country they came from. That's what my father did. Actually, there's a gentleman here in the audience that I didn't want to single out, but I'm going to point to him. His name is Peter Adam. My dad worked for his father for 20 years. 20 years. And he put me through Cal Poly, and now I gave my daughter a great education at Cal Poly as an ag business major. It worked, but Congress can't do it. You know why? Because they get up there and Republicans say, well, we're going to use it as a ploy. And the Democrats say, we're going to use it as a ploy. And guess who foots the bill? We do. And guess who gets hurt? The people that are here trying to make a living in America. On the DREAM Act, we ought to support the DREAM Act. Absolutely. We've paid for these young individuals K through 12 to go through school. Now they deserve to go to the university system, and they'll be productive taxpayers in the future. But you know why we're having to piecemeal everything? Because Congress can't get together and come up with a comprehensive immigration reform system that works. That's why. Because Congress is broken. It really, really is. And the people that have been the captain to the shipwreck can't pretend to be the lifeguards fixing it. I can guarantee you that for sure. Give me an opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is on education. And first we have the Republican platform on education. Shift to community colleges and technical institutions. No federal college loans, just insure private loans. Promote school choice and homeschooling. Support voluntary student-initiated prayer in school. And limit role of federal government in education. The Democratic platform on education is fully funded K through 14 public education, expanded financial assistance to public colleges and universities, expanded federal college tuition support for private colleges and universities, extensive parent participation programs, classes in healthy living and lifestyle effectiveness, expansion of preschool, after-school, and extracurricular activities, specialized learning academies in large high schools with paid internship and apprenticeship programs, ending the use of school test scores to determine funding levels, compensation, and faculty and administrator retention. Curriculum additions designed to develop multiple intelligence. Whoa, that's a mouthful, isn't it? Okay, so AEW advocates for adequate and equitable funding for quality public education for all students and believes quality public education is the foundation of a democratic society. So this question, the first one is, this first speaker will be Mr. Maldonado. What is your view, what is your view of public education? And let's see.
What are your ideas for improving and ensuring high-quality education in the United States for everyone?
Well, first of all, public education obviously is very, very important. I know that we don't talk about it enough because everybody's focused on jobs and the economy. But education is a foundation of making us a better society. There's no doubt about it. I'm a product of the public schools. I went to Fairlawn, I went to El Camino Junior High, and I went to Santa Maria High School. And right now I have 2 boys at Rigetti High School, and I have 1 young man at Orchid Junior High. And let me tell you what we need to do. We need to make sure that they're fully funded at the national level when it comes to educating our children with the resources. But we need to make sure those resources go to the classroom where the kids get to get it. That's what's important here. We need to make sure that all the money that comes to this area, it is put out and the decisions are made at the local level by local school board members. If I asked you today, who runs a school system in California, would you know? Would you know? Was it the superintendent of public instruction? Would it be The governor? Would it be the CTA? Would it be the local school board? Who is it? We don't know. We don't know because it's too big. Is it the federal government? I hope not. Is it Congress? I hope not. So we need a system to get back to the basics, where we have the resources that are coming in, that are made at local decisions, that K through 12 is fully funded, and that we have opportunities that are accessible. I was on the Board of Regents in California. And there was times where they were trying to increase the tuition to our students. And I was the only one, me and the student, who voted no on increasing tuition to the university system, because we're talking about access to the future of higher education that gives them a better education, that gives them better jobs, and when they have better jobs, we'll have better taxpayers in America. It's that easy. So I'm asking you for this opportunity. It's not really hard. It's only hard if you go take this job and you start making a partisan job. That's when the job gets really hard. But when you don't worry about who gets the credit, Republicans or Democrats or whoever, and you just get the job done, we can fully fund education and put education back where it was in this great state of ours, where it was 3 or 4 and 5. We can get there.
Thank you. You know, I hadn't read our party platform before tonight, but I'm pretty impressed with the Democratic platform on education. And I'll just tell you, in the years that I had my kids in public school, and now my grandkids are, and the years that I worked in a school district or a local school board, I'll tell you where the responsibility for education is. It's local. It's with our school boards. It's with the families who are raising the children in the community so that those values get passed on. But that doesn't leave the federal government off the hook by a long shot. And actually, it implicates the state as well, because there is a role for every level of government. Most of our funding now comes through the state of California. And now we're seeing, with Proposition 30 on the ballot, that we're in dire straits in California with education. Kind of wonder where my colleague here, my opponent, was all those years he was in Sacramento. We've gone from the best in the nation to one of the worst funded states in the whole country, in California. But now, we're not running for state office tonight. We're running for federal government. It starts with Head Start. We want to make sure, Head Start is a federally funded program that came about just because of the title of the name. Certain young people born with disadvantages, no fault of their own. They need a Head Start that the federal government can fund for them. We need early Head Start. We need Head Start that goes for migrant families. And we need support for special needs kids all the way through school. As a school nurse, I learned that very carefully, very clearly, that we want every child to have every advantage, and that means kids with special needs need help. But the time when we really want help is for our campus that Alan Hancock has right here in Lompoc. We need more Pell Grants. We need more student aid. College is too out of reach for too many people. The American dream includes a chance to go to college if you have the determination and the skills to do it, and that's what we want to make sure our federal government does its share in doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, the next question is going to be on women's health. And the Democratic Party platform says, the President and the Democratic Party believes that women have the right to control their reproductive choices. Democrats support access to affordable family planning services. The Affordable Care Act ensures that women have access to contraception in their health insurance plans. The Democratic Party strongly and unequivocally supports Roe v. Wade and a woman's right to make decisions regarding her pregnancy, including a safe and legal abortion, regardless of ability to pay. The Republican Party platform says, we assert the sanctity of human life and assert that the unborn child has a fundamental right to life, which cannot be infringed. We support a human life amendment to the Constitution and endorse legislation that the 14th Amendment's protections apply to unborn children. We oppose using public revenues to promote or perform abortions or fund organizations which perform or advocate it, and will not fund or subsidize health care, which includes abortion coverage. AUW believes in the right to privacy, freedom from violence, and choice in the determination of one's productive life. And the question is, Do you support your party's platform on women's reproductive options and why? And this first person to answer this will be Mrs. Capps.
I do support the platform that you read, Diane, from the Democratic Party. I have always been a pro-choice person and a pro-choice member of Congress, and I also am very, very grateful that in the Affordable Care Act are a number of women's health preventive services, and one of those is that no more will there be co-pays for birth control for women. And that's something I think we need to make sure that people understand, that there are some other parts of the preventive health services in the healthcare law too that we're just beginning to realize are going to make a difference in people's lives. And of course, I want to be mindful of the responsibility that women have to control their bodies, and that they need to have the right kind of education that Planned Parenthood can provide for them. But that's not what this Congress that I'm a member of right now, with John Boehner coming out here and campaigning for my opponent, believe in. This is the most restrictive Congress on women's rights that we've ever had in the history of Congress. They have voted to deny women access to abortions, even in the case of rape or incest. And defunding Planned Parenthood, which on the Central Coast is where a lot of women get, and men too, get a lot of their health services. And I'm sorry that my opponent in 2005 did not vote voted in Sacramento in the state legislature not to uphold Roe versus Wade. So there is a clear difference between my opponent and me when it comes to women and reproductive choice. Thank you.
Well, there is a clear difference. I'm not going to vote how John Boehner tells me how to vote. There's a clear difference. And my opponent is going to vote 97% of the time with what her party boss tells her to vote. There's a big difference. And I think that's very, very important, because John Boehner is not going to tell me how to vote. I can guarantee you that. There's only 700,000 people that are going to tell me how to vote. And I'm looking at some of them right now. Because I'm running for the 24th Congressional District. That's what I'm running for. I'm going to share something with you. I disagree with the Republican platform on this issue. The Congress we just talked about a vote in Sacramento. Well, a vote in Sacramento can't change or do anything with Roe versus Wade. I'm going to share this with you. As your congressman, I'm not going back there to mess with Roe versus Wade. It's the law of the land, and I'm not going to change it. And if a vote comes up, I'll be voting no. I'm not even going to vote to weaken it, to be very sincere with you. Because it is a deep, personal, private decision between a family and themselves. It's their choice. And they'll make those decisions. And you have my commitment on that issue as a congressman.
Thank you both. Okay, you're probably going to be glad to hear we're through with the party platforms, okay? Okay, so the next question. The 112th Congress has been called by many as the most unproductive Congress since 1947. Almost everyone in the country hopes that the next Congress will be more proactive and productive. The question is, with only about 10% of the public thinking Congress is doing a good job, what steps would you take if elected to bring bipartisanship back to Congress and to solve our nation's challenges? Please tell us what you would do as an individual and also as a member of your political party and working with your party leadership. And the first answer will be from Mr. Maldonado.
Thank you, Diane. The 112th Congress has been very productive. They've given us a $16 trillion debt. They've given us consecutive 42 months of the highest unemployment our country could ever give us. We've lost our credit rating for the first time in the history of America. They've bailed out all the big banks where we couldn't get loans for our folks. And they've eased trade with China. That's what they've been doing. So they've been productive. The problem is they've been productive in the wrong direction. We need to bring some certainty back into small family business owners. And we need to bring some confidence back into our government. And what does that mean? That means going back to Washington and putting everything aside and working with both parties to move forward. We can do it. I've actually demonstrated that I can work with the other party to get something done when things were on the line. I've done that. And I'm not afraid to do that. What do we need to do? We need to get back to the basics. We need to give some tax credits for some clean jobs to bring back to this great country of ours. Not to China, because that stimulus fund that Washington passed that said that we're going to create more jobs, created a lot of jobs in China. But you footed the bill. It really is amazing. And as you can see, I'm passionate. Because I can see what Washington's doing. Washington's killing us, my friends. It isn't working. It's broken. Every single... I'm not going to cry. That's John Boehner. I'm not going to cry, ma'am. Because I'm going back there to fight and to save this district, ma'am. I'm going to cry if that Congress continues to do what they're doing. Because that's the problem. So we can get back to the basics. Give some tax credits for some clean jobs. We can go back there and eliminate some of these costly regulations. And I'm not talking about regulations that protect workers or regulations that protect the air and protect the water. I'm talking about these regulations that they just passed. They just passed a regulation in Washington that said that all the trains should have an F on the front of it. So you would know it would be the front of the train. And they tried to pass another regulation that my kids couldn't go feed their animals because those were chores and you couldn't have young individuals work on a farm. That's the Washington that we have today, my friends. And that's the Washington that I'm going to go back there and fight every single day to change that direction.
Thank you. Well, this is getting really interesting to me because this least productive Congress, I think Mr. Maldonado wants to switch parties, is what I think, because this is the Congress.
I'm not belonging to a party. I would belong to the 24th Congressional District.
This is the evaluation of the 112th Congress that you just gave as the least productive that we've ever had, and other people have called it that. And it's Speaker John Boehner, who did come out and campaign for you and raise a considerable money on your behalf, who is the Speaker. And I'll just have to say to everyone that the other person you mentioned, Nancy Pelosi, was the Speaker of what's been called the most productive Congress in the history of the Congress. The preceding one, the 111th Congress, was pronounced by the same evaluation to be the most productive in the history of the Congress. And I guess this would be my question for Mr. Maldonado. If you should be elected to Congress, and you go back to Congress, to the next Congress, your first vote will be to elect a Speaker. So I'd be real interested to know if you're going to cast that vote for Mr. Boehner, who surely, if the Republicans are in the majority, will be running for Speaker. So that's one of the things you have to talk about. And you know, the real sadness in this is that there doesn't need to be this excessive partisanship, and there doesn't need to be this inability to work together. When Mr. Clinton was president, we had a balanced budget, and we had him working with a very Republican Congress, and we got a lot of work done, and we didn't have a deficit at all. So I know it can happen. I've introduced legislation with so many Republican colleagues, most recently an organic farming bill with Richard Hanna, a Republican from New York. I work with my colleagues across the aisle all the time. It's on these big items that cast this negative view that the public has of Congress that are because of this extreme partisanship where people take pledges before they even get there that they're going to vote a certain way. And those people happen to be voting on the Republican side. So we have a lot of work to do to fix Congress. I will agree with my opponent on that point.
Thank you both very much.
Okay, next question. The economy, unemployment, and the creation of jobs has been at the forefront of discussion lately. Access to high-wage, high-skilled jobs for everyone from diverse racial, ethnic, socioeconomic, age, and disability background is critical to preserve the middle class. The question is, what economic policies do you believe will stimulate the economy and bring more job creation, especially to the 24th District? What policies do you support to help people who may have outdated skills and are out of work to find a job? And the first responder will be Ms. Sept.
That's a fabulous question, and it comes right to the heart of who I represent. I represent the people and the people's needs of the 24th District. It's why I come home every weekend so that I can listen to what the needs are. And the policies that will stimulate the economy are what put people to work. That's what I'm hearing people tell me. And so those are targeted investments in infrastructure and getting clean energy to the forefront, finding jobs in that area, in research and development, high-tech research and development, so we can get the high-skilled jobs in this area that can put our best minds to work again. Vandenberg Air Force Base comes up with a lot of these terrific ideas, and we can work together with many of the projects that are going on there. And some of those projects have a lot of spin-offs that come out into our communities. We also need to very much target how we're going to make college more affordable. Because how do you get the skills to work in the 21st century? By being able to afford to go to college. So we need more financial assistance so more people can go to college and get the skills they need. And those people who've been laid off from jobs during this recession, that they can go back to school. And having Allen Hancock campus right here makes it very imperative that we do that. And finally, I want to make sure that we look out for our seniors. Because if we don't do it, who's going to? We want to make sure we don't privatize Medicare and Social Security, because we want our seniors to be able to have the kind of retirement that we want there to be there for us when we finish our working years as well. So those are the things I want to champion to make sure that we have the economy that's going to work in this century for this area, but also really for our entire country. Thank you. I'll pass this on to you now.
Well, there's no secret that the economy isn't doing too well. And I think the economy isn't doing too well because we have a Congress who can't come together, and what happens is it gives nobody certainty. And do you know what your tax rate's going to be at the beginning of the year? No. Do you know what's going to be next year? No. Do you know what the tax code is? 72,000 pages long? No. There's no certainty. So this notion of targeted investments, I'm not going back to Washington to invest your money into Cylindris, I can guarantee you that, where we give $535 million to companies that we know are going to go bankrupt. That's called cronyism. If we're going to give some support to somebody, we're going to give them some resources in the form of R&D so they can create jobs, but not give them money to run these things. No. Now Washington, now they have this new deal called sequestration. We have people here at Vandenberg Air Force Base today. They don't know if they're going to have a job because Congress can't come together. So guess what's going to happen? Congress on Friday left Washington. They left Washington to come to go to the districts to protect their jobs. What about our jobs? What about the people at Vandenberg Air Force Base? They couldn't get their job done, so they just left. And now we have thousands of people at Point Mugu and in Vandenberg Air Force Base. They don't know what's going to happen to their jobs because Washington left them. And they said, you know what, we'll deal with it with the lame duck Congress when we go back after the elections. Who knows? We just might pass it. We don't know. You see, my friends, we deserve a better government. We deserve a better government that works together. A government that can put the people first besides themselves first. They're more worried right now about protecting all their jobs. And I'm not talking about my opponent. I'm talking about every member of Congress, Republican and Democrat, both of them. They haven't done their job. And now they're out there campaigning today to protect their jobs. My friends, we can do this together. We can put certainty back in the economy. We really can. Let's lift the spirits of the American people. Let's get up in the morning and feel good about ourselves and where we're going. And the only way we're going to feel that is if we have a new Congress. and we change everybody in Washington.
Thank you both. Okay, final question.
I don't think I dealt with that one.
For economic policy, yes, you did.
Oh, the economic policy. I'm sorry, I'm jumping already.
Right. This is the next one and the final question. What will be your #1 priority for the next 2 years? And first, Mr. Maldonado.
Jobs, jobs, jobs. That is my #1 priority, growing the economy. And if there's a piece of legislation that creates jobs, Maldonado will be voting aye. And if there's a piece of legislation that hurts the economy, I will be voting no. And we need to stop some of these regulations that are so costly to businesses. They don't know what, they just push them out of there. 41,000 pages, $1.7 trillion worth of regulations coming out of Washington. So what does a mom and pop flower shop do here? They don't hire anybody. What does the donut shop over here on 8th Street do? They don't hire anybody. Because there's no certainty and there's no confidence. So my first 2 years, I'm going to focus on everything that I can within my power to create jobs and to put the economy back on track. And if the Democrats have a great idea, then I'm going to vote for that idea. And if they have a bad idea, then I'll vote no on that idea. But I'm not going back to be a Republican or a Democrat. I'm going back to be an American, the 24th Congressional District. I've proven that before. I'm going to continue to do that. So it's jobs, 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 and growing the economy. That's what it's all about.
Thank you. Well, my #1 priority for the next 2 years is sitting right in this room. It's you folks. I haven't had the privilege of representing Lompoc, except way back in the beginning when I was first elected. But it really is the people I represent. I take very seriously what this job title is, representative, and that means to know what's on your mind. You can communicate it in a lot of different ways, but if I'm not measuring up to what your expectations are, then you are the judge, and that's why we have elections, and boy, for the House of Representatives, we have them every 2 years. So, but let me also focus on something which I think is the backbone and the heart and soul of this community, as I know it, which is, it is small business. And it is the need to get small businesses the kind of support that is needed now in this tough time. As my opponent said, it's hard to hire when you're a small business in this kind of economy. So I voted 18 times for tax cuts for small businesses to make it more affordable for them to get out there and do that hiring. And we've instituted banking reforms as much as we can, because banks are privately held, to make it possible for loans to be obtained by businesses. But it is still tough, and that's why we need a lot more work to do to get our economy back on track. But it starts with making sure we have the opportunities for small businesses to succeed in this kind of climate and grow and prosper, and little by little, we'll get the rest of the economy coming as well, because it is how people invest and the ideas that people have that can really put that to action, and that's what these next years are going to be about, rebuilding our economy as we know and have cherished it over the generations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Okay, thank you both. Let's give them a round of applause. Okay, now we're going to take about a 15-minute break, and if you don't have your card, you've got a question. I'm sure you have a question. So if you have your card, the cards are around here. They're right there. Get a card, get a pencil, and write your question. And where is the screening committee going to be to take them? Right here. Okay, great. And thank you both. Thank you. Okay, we'll see you in about 15 minutes. So the first question, we ended with Lois, so we'll start with Lois. Most of these questions are for both candidates. So the first question is, how do you feel about offshore drilling in California waters, and what is your position on fracking?
Thank you. I decided I better stand up because I've been sitting too long. I have a very strong commitment. I lived on the Central Coast in 1969 when we had the big oil spill and saw what it did to our economy for decades. And we don't need any more drilling off California's shore. And there's a law not to do that. There's a law in state waters and there's federal sanctions against it too. And we do drill today. We actually have more drilling during this past year. More oil wells have been drilled than previously. So it's not that we're not drilling, we just don't want to drill offshore in California. And I am interested in fracking, let's put it that way, because what we want to do is find out what's in the process of fracking and what's it doing to our groundwater. We're in some of the richest agriculture area in the world, right here in Lompoc Valley. And if that fracking continues, we don't really know what toxins they're putting in as they're blasting the rock to get to the oil. And so the first thing we have to do is find out what they're doing to the groundwater and to the opportunity for the future of that land to be used for anything else. We do have a huge energy problem. We want to be self-sufficient as a nation. And the way we'll never do that by drilling anything, any amount of anything. We've got to do it by focusing on renewable energy sources. Yesterday, I went to see some electric vehicles because we have new plug-in stations down the waterfront. They're throughout the county now. And there were some folks who drove these cars. They're still too expensive, but one day, hopefully, they'll come down in price. And the person who had one of these cars had solar panels on his roof, and so he was driving on sun power. He powered his car with the electricity that he got from the solar panel. So maybe that's something that we can look forward to in years to come. Thank you.
Well, I think our country needs to get off of the dependency of foreign oil. There's no doubt about it. But we need a concise and pragmatic and reasonable energy plan in America. One that explores for energy. Now, our Congresswoman just said that she remembers the oil spill and that she doesn't support offshore oil drilling.
New one.
2 years ago, she supported the PXP project here off the coast of California. I didn't support that project. And I was a state lands commissioner, and I would have voted no if it would have became before me. And I'm going to tell you why. That's something that I carry in my heart. My grandfather told me early on, he said, son, they don't make coastline anymore. We've got to protect what we have. So drilling off the coast of the 24th Congressional District is not going to happen if I'm a congressman. And even if my friends come and tell me that this is good like they did to the congresswoman, I'm not going to support offshore oil drilling. Now when it comes to fracking, there's new technology out there. It's something that we need to look at. And I think the congresswoman does make a good point. We need to find out what they're putting in these wells when they're fracking. And don't give me none of this stuff that it's a trade secret and that we can't tell you because it's our own trade secret. No. One employee can go from one company to the other. They know what the secrets are. Tell us what you're doing. And let's move forward with clean energy. Of course we need wave. Of course we need renewable and bio and wind and solar. But we also need to extract for our energy here. You want to cut some spending in Washington? Explore for more energy in America. Because we wouldn't be spending all this money on wars in the Middle East. Our kids going back there, losing limbs and arms, because we don't have an energy policy here in America. That needs to change. I'll be working on an energy plan. And if I don't, then you don't have to vote for me again. Because that's what this race is about. People that are going back there to work hard for you. I might as well keep it because I'm next.
You are. Except I have to
Oh, that's
right. Other than that. Okay, second question is for both of you. I think that negative ads hurt the political process and alienate voters. Why do you do these ads and not ones that highlight your vision for America and its citizens?
Great question. I haven't run a negative ad. We have some outside groups that are running negative ads, but our congresswoman's running a negative ad. Attacking my father, my mother, my wife and my kids and my business and my family business. You know why? Because that's what Washington knows how to do. Because after all these years, Washington politicians attack each other every single day. Every single day. Republicans attack Democrats and Democrats attack Republicans, so what can you expect when you come back home? My friends, we need to stay on the issues. We need to focus on the issues. People are yearning for jobs and people are yearning for confidence in their government. In all, I'm not talking about just this district, Diane. You go to other districts, Washington politicians are out there attacking their opponents because they're more worried about protecting their own job than they are the jobs of the American people. Now, if negative attacks work, Lois Sept is going to win this race. But if they don't, I'm going to be a member of Congress. Thank you.
The first bill, when I was first elected to Congress, that I worked on was the campaign finance bill. And I've worked on every bill that has come about since. And one of the challenges that we have in this election is the Supreme Court decision in favor of Citizens United that allows so much of the outside money coming in and those super PACs coming in. Right now, there are 12 of those, and including my opponent's ads, which I would call negative, about my record against mine and the one or two that I put up. Because when the trouble with advertising is that when it's not truthful, you need to correct it. And you need to correct it by setting the record straight. And when it comes to tax policy, that's what I believe the American people and the people of the 24th District deserve to hear. And so that's what we've done. But I want to get back to one of the bills that I voted for in the House, now that we have the Supreme Court decision, is the Disclose Act in Congress, which didn't go anywhere because of the leadership in the Congress, which would require that if you are going to run a super PAC, that you have to put your name on it. Everyone who funds it has to put their name on it. And that at least would take us some steps toward identifying who is behind these super PACs. I am in danger, as many of my friends have told me. I feel our country is in danger of losing our democracy, frankly, over the kind of money that has gotten involved in campaigning. And I want to put a stop to it. And I have voted for every attempt to do that in Congress, and I'll vote for everyone that I have that opportunity to, because I believe, and this is the kind of discussion that you're hosting at AUW and that my opponent and I are engaged in, where you actually talk with voters. And grassroots campaigning can do that too, where you go door to door, you make a phone call. But it's a serious matter that does cross both party lines that we have to address. Thank you.
The next question, have you or will you sign the Grover Norquist pledge? And that would be Lois's.
Mr. Norquist didn't ask me to sign it. But it's a good question, because that is what has changed this Congress that I'm now serving in, the 112th Congress. More than who's speaker, it's been who has been controlling the majority party. And it has been the Tea Party members who took that pledge, and all of them did. And every person who's elected with the word R behind their name, whether or not they're going to vote that way or not, is going to be asked to sign that pledge. And there are severe sanctions if you don't. And that's another thing that's wrong with what we're doing today. And talk about fixing Washington. There sure is a lot to fix in Washington. So I guess I would ask my opponent if he plans to go back there and fix Washington like he fixed Sacramento.
Well, Congressman, I think Congresswoman, you're forgetting who's run Sacramento for the last 14 years. And I've been in the minority party for a long time. And I really didn't have an opportunity, but I can honestly say that by being in the minority, I had the ability to amend the Constitution of California twice and put in an open primary system that allowed all this partisan bickering to go away. And I think that's a step in the right direction. I think it allows people to choose, and we can move forward. The pledge, I'm only pledging to you. That's it. I'm pledging to all of you that I'm going to represent you to the best of my ability. I'm not signing anything from Grover Norquist. He doesn't know the 24th Congressional District. We do. But you look at Washington today, and you have politicians who vote with their party bosses 96% of the time. That's a pledge. That's not a pledge to you. I'm pledging to you that every vote that I cast will be the one that I think is best for the 24th Congressional District. And if you don't like it, then you will have an opportunity to vote against me the following election. And if John Boehner doesn't like it, then tough. It's just the way it's going to be.
Okay, thank you both. Okay, the next question. I've heard a lot about higher education and skilled jobs, but what do you plan to do to help those who only have a high school diploma and don't wish to go to college? And that would be yours.
Make sure that there's jobs available to you. That's what I'm going to do. Because right now, even the young individuals who are graduating from the university system don't have a job. And we need to find a way to create more jobs. And the only way we're going to create jobs, and I'm talking about private sector, small family business owner jobs. I'm not talking about government jobs. We have plenty of government jobs. We need to find a way to stimulate this economy. There's $2 trillion in the banks. That's the best stimulus we can give America today, to allow small business owners to invest their hard-earned capital into their business to create jobs. Not bailing out Wall Street, not giving stimulus folks money to folks so they can go create jobs in China. That's not what we need to be doing. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. We need to be here at home. So what can we do so they can have jobs and skills? Give them some good vocational education. Make sure there's access to higher education, access to a community college, and make sure that there's a business that's there that's alive and breathing to give them a job. That's what we need to be doing.
Thank you. This question was about what the person wants who doesn't want to go to college but wants to have a decent job. And I look around who's here this evening, and that's a tradition that we've all long held in this country through apprenticeships and on-the-job training programs that came, a lot of it through organized labor. And I think it's time to stand up and say there are more ways to get skills for jobs in today's economy. And some of it can be obtained by going to higher education institutions like Allen Hancock Community College, like Cal Poly, like UCSB, but sometimes we need to have people willing to set up apprenticeship program and trade school programs. We used to have those. We used to have them in the high schools called regional occupational programs, well funded in California. But you know, the first things that lose funding sometimes are those special programs. But with this kind of interest, if there is this interest, those programs can be restructured and brought back again, because there are great mentors who work in positions and could get easily, not easily, it's hard work, pass on their skills to the next generation of a workforce. And maybe that's a movement that needs to start, and maybe it can start right here in Lompoc Valley with the people who know from their personal experience, way back sometimes, when we had programs like that that did work and did work well. Because you know, the bottom line to this question is really, what about choice? What about different paths and different avenues? What can we do to fulfill the American dream in some non-traditional settings, in some non-traditional ways? And that's an opportunity that we have. And we can maybe recreate some of the programs that existed in the past. Where there's a will, sometimes there's a way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This next questioner has a great sense of humor. The first part of his question is, what would you do to make more microphones available? Seriously, he says. Will you work to reverse Citizens United and to get the money out of politics? Thank you. And this would be Lois's first.
Thank you. You can't overturn a Supreme Court decision except by an act of Congress. And that's why I mentioned except for another Supreme Court that came along with the right, but that takes sometimes a long time to wait because it's a life, I won't say a sentence, but it's a life term. And so it only changes when there's a retirement or a death within the Supreme Court. And if they could change their ruling themselves, but short of that, would be the Congress to act to overturn the decision of the Supreme Court, which is why I'm a co-sponsor of the Disclose Act. When the decision was made, we knew it was going to be a sort of a death knell to campaigning the way people want to have it, just because it would unleash this whole amount of money into politics. And you know, the old saying, you can buy elections. Well, it comes pretty close to that, doesn't it, when you see what happens with all the money that washes through in terms of the super PACs that are shadowy and hidden. Nobody knows where the money comes from. So the one specific piece of legislation that I know of now is requiring that names, that signatures, and that's actually pretty powerful. That would take us a step in the right direction if we could pass legislation and have it signed into law. And President Obama has indicated he would sign such a law that required that the super PACs that come because of Citizens United decision, that all of the people who funded those PACs have to put their names there for all to see. So that's one step that's practical, at least, or that's concrete, that's specific, that could be taken. And then if we get with the right Congress, we then could do that next big step, is to just overturn that decision. That would be my dream.
Well, Diane, I don't think it's humorous to be very sincere with the guy, or whoever's the girl, the guy that's asking for more microphones. We do need more microphones. We need more local microphones. Because right now the only microphones that we're hearing are Washington politicians who think they know better than us. And they just stick it to us. And we're footing the bills. So we do need more microphones. Citizens United is wrong. There's no reason why one individual can give $20 or $30 million to somebody and go run that campaign against somebody. That is wrong. Now, I can tell you that the attack ads that are coming against my family right now are not from a Citizens United. They're from Congresswoman Lois. So this notion that only independent expenditures, no. Everybody gets negative in Washington. That's all they know how to do. Friday, they were attacking each other over a bill. They did it on Thursday, they did it on Wednesday, they did it. And there's only way we're going to change all those attacks out of Washington is if we change everybody in Washington. And I mean that, not only here in the 24th, I mean the whole country. Change them all. We need a new face. We need new thinking. We need a new Congress. Because the one that's there keeps promising and never delivers anything to any of us. So we ought to overturn Citizens United and come together as a country. Congress will act when we stand up and voice our opinion. The problem that we have is that Congress listens to two microphones, the party bosses on each side. Not me.
Thank you both. Next question. What are your plans to help the IHSS programs, helping our seniors and disabled citizens?
I think the IHSS program is a wonderful program. And today I'm being attacked for a vote that I casted in 2009 to protect IHSS. In-home support services. We have some people here, I think they give care in in-home support services. Muchas gracias por el apoyo for IHSS. These are individuals who work every day hard to make a living to help their loved ones. We're going to protect the program. How are we going to do it? We're to make sure that we have a strong economy, we have good jobs, and eliminate all the fraud that has gone on in the system, because there's a lot of fraud. I've seen it. I'm not saying everybody. There is fraud, and that fraud gives everybody else a black eye. But I believe that we ought to take care of our loved ones at home, and what better than to do it through IHSS. I've supported the program. I think it's a wonderful program. We need to protect it.
And I also am looking at the people who are doing this work every day, and in addition to that, are organizing, and we do need to pay living wages. I've been a long-time champion for living wages, not just minimum wages, but for living wages, particularly for those who care for, in this I share my opponent's conviction about the sacredness, really, of providing care to a loved one. It becomes your loved one in a very personal setting, but it's also often the very best place to give care because it can be very personal. And we don't do enough to reward that at any level. It's not necessarily at the federal level altogether, but we need to be very mindful. And one of the things we need to do is to let the folks who do that kind of work organize themselves so that they can speak with one voice rather than being split off and not having a say in decisions that are made, whether they're made in Sacramento or made in Washington, D.C., to give you the opportunity to do this kind of work, which is really the noble work and needs to be valued and cherished as such. And that leads me to think about the way we care for our elders. And we're an aging society, aren't we? And we want to make sure that we have in place what I like to call a continuum of care, so that as we age and those who have disabilities, it's the same, can be cared for in the least restrictive environment with the most loving care, usually in the home, but then that there be a place for more skilled care when the time comes, and that then there be a place for acute care if there should be an emergency or something like that. This is my dream for an America, where we look out for one another in the ways that we can't do by ourselves, and that we provide the different levels of care that we can provide so that people can do that. And that we give dignity to the folks who do that kind of work. Thank you. Thanks for asking the question.
Okay, thank you both. Next question. How can we best deal with climate change and global warming if it is not too late? What clean jobs will you help create? So there are really two questions here. Okay, and we'll start with Lois.
That's a huge topic. And I guess I want to point out right away that there was an Assembly Bill 32 in California, a landmark piece of legislation that unfortunately my opponent didn't vote for, which it passed so that it put into place a very important series of protections that recognized climate change and that we need to deal with this. And I'll contrast that with in Washington, D.C., where I work with colleagues who don't even believe in climate change. But we know very well, living in a coastal community, that we will face the effects of climate change in our area before some other places will. And we'll see it as our oceans rise, and that as cities along the oceans will have to change. And that as we see that with climate change come extremes in weather that we're beginning to see now. So we need to put into place legislation that begins to mitigate against the effects of climate change, because it's already happening. And then we need to put into place policies that will reduce the amount of pollution in the atmosphere so that we can stop the progression of climate change. There are steps we need to do, and we need to start. We should have started yesterday, but it is clearly time that we do that, and we should be the ones most sensitive to this, who live in the coastal areas and see the effects with the acidification of the ocean that's already occurring, the changes in sea life, with the extremes in the weather that we're seeing here, but they're being felt everywhere, and the effect that it will have on populations around the world. It is a scientific situation, but unfortunately, we have a lot of naysayers still in Congress. So we have work to do to make these changes happen. Thank you.
Well, that landmark legislation that Congresswoman Lois talked about was called AB 32. I voted against AB 32. No certainty for small business owners. And all the businesses came to us and said, how could you do this to us? We can't create more jobs. So you can't say on one hand that you're for creating jobs and make it easier and allowing small businesses to prosper, and on the other hand, we're going to stick you with something that we don't even know what the regulations are. We're going to pass a bill, and we're going to let the ARB board, unelected board, stick it to the businesses. That's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to take responsibility for the votes that I cast. Absolutely. Congresswoman Capps said one day that she thinks that climate change is bigger, that climate change is bigger than the AIDS epidemic. She said that. Now, let me share something with you. I don't know how many people have died of global warming, but I know how many people have passed away from AIDS. And I'm not throwing bombs at global warming, because I'm not. Because deep down in my heart, I think there is climate change. But we have to be reasonable and pragmatic how we go about it. We just have to be reasonable. Because right now is not the time to have our local farmers in Carpinteria, our local growers, that have to sell their vehicles to another country because they don't make air emissions anymore here in this state. That's a huge cost of business. And when people have to go do that, guess what? They don't hire more people. So, I'll repeat myself. I think there is climate change. But we have to be reasonable. I'm not a naysayer. We just have to be reasonable in the approach that we take so we can move this great country forward.
Thank you. Okay, and this will be the last question. What is your opinion on term limits for Congress?
Do we really want to go there? Do we really want to go there? Well, listen, I don't know what the number is, but I think there should be term limits for Congress. And you know, my opponent has been running these ads. They're called trust. It's a powerful word. The whole campaign at the beginning of our congressman was on, I'm going to run for 3 terms. And then I'm not going to run anymore. I don't think this notion of having politicians be there forever and ever is a good thing. Let me share something with you. I'm going to Congress to do a couple of things. I want a temporary worker permit that allows a good immigration system to work. I want to create more jobs. I want to grow the economy. I want to put certainty for small businesses. I want to give confidence in the government. And I'm coming back to my ranch. I'm not going to go back there to stay forever. Because I don't need that mean attack stuff that comes out of Washington. So that's why I'm asking you to give me an opportunity to serve you. Because I'm not going back there to be there forever. I'll answer the question. I think there should be some term limits. I don't know how much.
I'm glad for the question too, because term limits are right in this room. The people who go in the ballot box set the terms. And that's up to each and every person here. And instituting term limits in Congress is certainly a possibility, but it would mean changing the Constitution. And that takes probably a minimum of 27 years. The Equal Rights Amendment for women has been lagging for much longer than that. And I'd like to see that get a little higher priority. But the truth is that a 2-year term, which we have now, that has to be renewed every 2 years, as my opponent said, it's a job application, actually was designed by the framers of the Constitution with the notion that one of the bodies, one of the chambers of the House of Representatives would be closely tied to the people. Now those folks, it was only the Atlantic seaboard that was in the country at that time, so it is a bit challenging now, and we have the infusion of big money, and we have the way that we advertise now. But the notion that one body, one chamber, the Senate, would be deliberative and have a longer term of office and have a different style to it, and it certainly has a different style, and then have one that's sort of hurly-burly like the House is, where we come and go, and we're voted on every two years. And my goodness, the Congress changes dramatically every 2 years. That absolutely is the case. The last election provided a huge sea change in the Congress, and who knows, this next one might as well. So that's the power that the people have at the ballot box, which is the most important power of all.
Okay, thank you both. And that ends the audience participation for the evening. And now we'll have closing statements. And so Mrs. Capps will start first because she went second in the very beginning. So these will be the 2-minute closing statements from each candidate.
Thank you, and I think we've had a fabulous moderator this evening. Thank you, Diane. And I just want to thank all of you for being here this evening. You could have been doing a lot of other things and you chose to come here, so I'm most grateful to you. And I'm very thankful to the AAUW of Lompoc for hosting this event. It's wonderful for me to look out and see people I know here in Lompoc. And also be mindful that there are a lot of people here I hadn't met before tonight. So if we haven't had a chance to shake hands, I hope we do on the way out. And if you didn't get to ask a question, I'll be sticking around for a few minutes in case you want to do that. I also want to thank my opponent. This is Lieutenant Governor Abel Maldonado, and I appreciated hearing the views that you expressed this evening, and I thank you for your many years of public service. You know, this country is still struggling through some hard times, and I see that here on the Central Coast as well. And that's why I want to work hard every day to make sure that our businesses can thrive and make sure that we do the right thing by our young people and make college more affordable. Let's get more jobs opening up here in Lompoc as in other parts of the Central Coast and rebuild this economy that we have. And let's look out for our seniors. Let's not privatize Medicare and Social Security. Those are the goals that I have as I move forward. And I look forward to working with all of you in doing that. And I just want to say another word of appreciation for AAUW. And maybe it's because I am a member, but I appreciate in this economy, particularly, that you stand up and speak out for women's issues and women's rights, because they're being trampled on a bit now. And that includes health decisions for women, but it also includes economic empowerment, which is what we need now. And it includes paying attention to girls and young women with their educational needs. So I value the role that you play and that businesses can play as we move together to move our economy back to full steam again. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. And to you, Diane, thank you for a great job. And to all the women that are here, part of the organization, thank you. It's great to be here. I want you to know something, that if you elect me to be your congressperson, I'll be coming home every weekend. And I'll be coming home to Laura, and to Erica, and to my mother. And don't you dare worry, they won't let me trample on any women's issues. I guarantee you that for sure. My mother still pulls on my ear, that's why it's a little big, whenever I'm doing something wrong. But I want to share this with you. I think 14 years is enough in Washington. And I really believe that it's time to give somebody else an opportunity. And if you believe that somebody else deserves a chance for an opportunity, I'm asking you to give it to me. Because I'm going to go back there and work for a short period of time, and then come back to this beautiful area and let somebody else go represent you. Because what happens in Washington, once they're there for a long time, they become part of the problem, and they forget about us. And I think it's important that I say this, because if you look back there, I'm not talking just about our congresswoman. I've met some friends in Congress now that have been there for 20 or 30 years. Do you think they can really give to their districts what they gave when they first ran? No. I think we ought to have some change. So let me just leave you with this. I'm running because I want to stimulate the economy by helping small family business owners, like my mother and my father, who came to this country looking for an opportunity. I picked strawberries next to my mother and next to my dad. And this country gave my family everything. And we've worked hard, and we've saved, and we've planned, and we've paid taxes. And we've built a business. And I'm asking you for this opportunity because I want to go fight for the right reasons. So, let me just leave you with this. You're going to have a choice on November the 6th. And when you go into that booth and you close that curtain behind you, or you vote from your living room or from your kitchen, you will make a decision. And I think your choices are going to be pretty clear. If you want the same that Washington has today, then you will have that opportunity. If you love bank bailouts, and you love losing our credit rating and $16 trillion debt, and business regulations and no immigration reform, if you like that, you can continue to go that route. And if you want some new thinking and new leadership, give me an opportunity. I won't let you down.
Very, very much for being here. I think it was a super evening, and thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. So, good night.
I know our congressperson having a lot.